Netflix, they of course came out with the Tour de France Unchained. We've talked about it before. And there's a lot of things to talk about. But yeah, kind of what are your thoughts on it? I must admit that I was a stern critic of it. And I was actually surprised how good it was. Drive to Survive is amazing, but I don't think it is going to capture new people that much. Judging by Netflix's Facebook page, they have over 5 million people and they only had 5,000 likes on the post. So I think, Patrick, you said this to me that you think it's just going to be preaching to the choir. But for Netflix, that would be huge because the cycling sphere is huge.
Yeah, I mean, caveat, I've watched 7 episodes of V8, so I think I've got like the Hotes one still to go. So I know most of it, but I have enjoyed it actually. I know I've seen some people on Twitter being a little bit critical of parts of it or not enjoying certain elements, but I don't know. I'm with you, Scott. I've quite enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I've enjoyed the insight. I'm not really sure what people were expecting or what it hasn't provided that they were hoping for. Because at the end of the day, we were never going to have like Pogacar on here, were we? Because UAE was never a team. I guess that's the thing. Which, if I was to have a critique, it was going to be, because it is going to be there's going to be a second season that's already been announced. It would be good if UAE were also a team, and you could have the Jumbo and UAE thing going on. That would be a good thing because I've been very much enjoyed the Jumbo aspects. I think that's been a highlight of it. I think especially, but yeah, were you going to say something, Scott? That's kind of like my overall opinion of it.
Some of the critics have said they missed out the handshake between Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar. I thought that was very strange. It's also only 8 episodes, which is very normally they do 10. They missed out the Dylan Groenewegen victory on stage 3, which I thought was a bit of a shame. But Fabio Jakobsen, and they also said Seth Kuss, which is wrong. Sepp Kuss. But yeah, Fabio Jakobsen, I think my respect for him has just gone through the roof. Just seeing him as well. He talks like Nick de Vries, the Formula One driver, which I find quite funny as well. Both Dutch, obviously. But yeah, I think my respect for him has just gone through all spheres.
Yeah, I actually haven't had the chance to watch it yet, so I mean, I'm a little bit ignorant on this front, but from what I've seen online, a lot of the discourse is relatively positive, apart from there's one thing that I noticed when began watching the first episode, which I haven't completed yet. The dubbing, if you watch it with the English dubbing, it's really, really
Oh my
terrible.
God, it freaking is. I gave up after 2 episodes.
Yeah, I had to watch it in French because the English dubbing was so bad, and the subtitling as well is questionable at times. So apart from that, it seems like a good success. I feel like it really captures the narratology of the sport. Also what I've heard from people is that like casuals who don't love watching cycling have said that the boring elements of a race have been made exciting. Like I've seen that as kind of consensus, or like even like boring aspects of certain stages, they've made it seem interesting.
They made stage 2 a lot more interesting than it actually was, which I thought was quite impressive. And obviously, they're bringing like the Drive to Survive aspects to it as well, so that made it more interesting. Thibaut Pinot as well, that was quite an interesting aspect to him. He said like that was like a very crazy quote where he says, "I think sometimes I'm more popular than I have ability," or something like that. And seeing him not win the La Planche stage, not having Israel Primitic, actually, I thought was a bit of a shame. They kind of glossed over the Simon Clark victory. Nothing about Ugo Ul's victory, which was just a open goal for Netflix. And I mean, I think it was really good. But I also think, like, I don't know, Patrick, if you thought this. I thought Jumbo Visma were a bit robotic. Like Wout van Aert, Jonas Vingegaard, yeah, they're really nice, but there was no really like oomph. There was no character to them in some
Yeah,
respect.
I can see what you mean, but at the same time, I think in comparison to the interviews that we're very used to from Jumbo Visma, it was relatively energetic, I think, in a way. I actually heard Jonas swear. That was quite something new. That was quite a pleasant surprise. I was like, oh, Jonas swears. Oh my word. And I don't know. I quite liked there was a little bit of beef. I'm not sure whether Netflix exemplified it a little bit, but they were talking about how like there's the kind of Wout and Jonas thing, which I think for when I was watching it last year, I thought it all seemed to be going quite very well. Like it was all running very, very smoothly. But actually, it turns out that Jonas had a crash. I think it was on the Carcassonne stage, which Philipsen won, and Wout didn't wait, despite the fact that everybody in Jumbo was called back. And I was like, "Ooh, spicy!" And Jonas was pissed off on the Calais stage because Wout didn't wait for like 2 seconds of the top of the climb. And I was like, it's good to see a little bit of friction. It shows that Jumbo Visma, despite what we have said, like we've said a lot of times, they are quite a rigid robotic team at times. It showed a little bit of friction, a little bit of fray in the cloth, and I was like, this is kind of what I wanted from this series, and I'm quite happy Netflix showed it.
It kind of had a full circle as well because the time trial stage, you get the inside where you hear that Jonas literally says, "If I'm up on Wout van Aert, tell me to slow down so I can gift him the stage." And then you see, because you see Wout van Aert crying and you're kind of, well, almost crying. And you're like, is that because he's winning a stage? No, it's because he thought it was so incredible what his teammate was doing for him. He was, yeah, really touched by that. But I must say, Marc Mario as well. I absolutely love him even more so now. Patrick Lefevre as well. He was actually quite nice. And Fabio Jakobsen said he is so thankful for that opportunity that he actually risked it all for Jakobsen in a way, because there was no guarantee that he was going to come back and be this all-conquering sprinter. So I would say it's a really good Unchained. But one thing I would say though, when you're seeing like a random mountain stage, I had no idea where they were on the stage. They could have like made the pro cycling stats where we can see exactly where they are on the stage. That's well inside the power of Netflix to do. So I think small touches like that. But yeah. Oh, one thing as well, Geraint Thomas didn't mention Egan Bernal as one of their Tour de France winners. And my Colombian girlfriend got extremely angry about that. So yeah, but Rigoberto Urán was in it and he was quite funny.
I quite enjoyed it because, like Ewan was saying, how turn off the English voice dubbing. Like, literally just put on subtitles or something because it's so annoying. It's like a weird, like 1 second lag, but it's good because I know that you and I, Scott, were both like learning French, and it was actually quite handy in a weird way to have like the French commentary, especially like episode 3. Oh my word, they cover Groupama FDJ and Agent Desert Citroën, and I'm like, it's so much French, my brain was fizzing. So if you're a French learner out there, turn off the English dubbing. You might, you get hours of French listening. Kind of, it's just like free tutoring on the side. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I can understand what you mean. There would be some good things to improve upon, but I think on the whole, I am impressed, and it's what I wanted. So I'm looking forward to the next series. Hopefully, this year is good. Because we'll have some more interesting stuff to talk about next year.
And I think in terms of like drawing parallels between this and the Drive to Survive, if you remember that first series of Drive to Survive, that was not the best series. It only got better with time. That more teams were on board after the first series and it gained more momentum, rather. Maybe that happens with this one where it takes some time to gain momentum. But I do also see that it hasn't captured hype outside of cycling circles yet. But that could happen once there's more series, maybe after the Tour de France when people want to discover more about it in a post-Tour de France hype. I think that sometimes is more powerful than a pre-Tour de France hype for newbies. Maybe they'll come through, and I think the next series of LDM Menace Pensado as well will come out fairly soon. So both of those could be quite good. They could complement each other quite well.